Two, one.
Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi today said that President Draupadi Murmu's address to Parliament last week was pretty much the same as what they heard last time and the time before that. Now, he was participating in a debate on the motion of thanks on the president's address in Lok Sabha, where Rahul said that president's speech was the same laundry list of things the government has done. And he spoke about a lot of issues. He came out with a lot of facts. He did not meander at all, but put out everything on how he could corner the government on every issue. And I'll just give you a few examples of some of the top quotes from his speech today, where he said that we've not been able to tackle unemployment. Neither UPA nor NDA has given a clear cut answer to youth about employment. Then he said that India has to focus completely on production. Social tension is on the rise in India. Then he said that we have, as a country, failed in organizing production and handed it over to the Chinese. PM Narendra Modi tried and conceptually Make in India was a good idea, but it is clear that this idea failed. Then he said that we would not send our foreign minister to the US to get our PM invited to the US's president's coronation. This is also what he said. We have done a caste survey in Telangana. We found almost 90% of the state comprises Dalits, tribals, backwards, and minorities. Then he also went on to say that none of the largest corporates in this country are owned by OBCs, Dalits, or tribals. And then he held out the booklet of Constitution and he said that Constitution will rule India always. Then he focused also on the four technologies that drive change in mobility. He talked about electric motors, batteries, optics, and application of artificial intelligence. He said, imagine the power of the caste census. He went to that extent. And then he spoke about the architecture of a new development paradigm can only be built when a caste census is placed on. These were some of the broad pointers on which Rahul Gandhi focused today. But many have been discussing since the time that speech got over that this was by far the most matured speech by Rahul Gandhi. So has he matured as a leader? Did he corner the government enough? Because Prime Minister today was present. And on many, many issues, he felt cornered, to which Kiran Rijiju rose up and he objected. There was a lot of objection from the Treasury benches as well. So we'll try and analyze Rahul Gandhi's speech of today. Joining me now is S. Srinivasan, Editor-in-Chief of the Federal Group. So thank you so much for joining. We have TK Rajlakshmi, Senior Deputy Editor from the Frontline. Thank you so much, Rajlakshmi, for joining. And we have Senior Editor of the Federal, Puneet Nicholas Yadav. And I'll begin with Puneet. Rahul Gandhi's speech of today, you were present inside the parliament. How would you really see today's speech by Rahul Gandhi? And can we say that this was by far the best speech put out by Rahul Gandhi ever?
Yeah, well, Nilu, I wouldn't want to jump to saying whether, he's cornered the government sufficiently or not, but certainly a very sound speech from him, very unlike what we generally hear from Rahul in Parliament. And it was a very focused speech. He used it as, as a chance to present what his vision is for the country's growth, for the country's employment, optimizing other capabilities. That's one criticism that has always been hurled at Rahul, at the wider opposition, at the Congress party, that they're constantly criticizing the Prime Minister, they're constantly criticizing the BJP. They have nothing positive to offer. But today, I think that is what he essentially did. He said that, and that's how he sort of turned around the debate on, the motion of thanks to the president's address, where he said that essentially said that he doesn't want to, debate the president's address per se, because it's a repetition of something that's been heard over and over again. And instead, he wants to say what a president's address from a government that, the India bloc, if the India bloc was in power, what a president's address would look like. And then he went on to say that, look, these are the things that I think need to be done. And he touched upon a huge variety of issues. And also conceding that even the UPA government failed to address the employment question adequately, and so has the NDA. So I wouldn't say that it was a speech that was high on political rhetoric. For a change, he made a lot of sense, and his speech had a lot of substance. He spoke specifically on issues of production, of artificial intelligence. He spoke about our competition and challenges with regard to China. These were all issues that he touched upon, and I think he came very well prepared today. He, of course, spoke about the constitution and the caste census, which are politically, subjects that the Congress has been raising consistently. But the bulk of his speech was focused on issues, and it's very hard to argue that a lot of what he said is not in the country's interest. He certainly said things which his pitch for amping up production, his pitch for data driven AI, for capacity building in defense. You cannot say that on any of these subjects he was wrong. These are all things. Even if you speak to any sane voice within the BJP, off the record, they too would agree that yes, what he's saying is in the country's interest. So I think certainly a very good speech, a mature speech, and precise and prescient. So I'm sure. I mean, if you go through how the mainstream media has been reporting on it, I think that would give you an indication of how good a speech it was, because the mainstream media largely, I was going through some of the headlines before joining your show. The copies that I saw on most websites, the legacy media websites, did not talk about what he has said in terms of this vision and all that I spoke of. They spoke about Jaishankar rebutting his charge of the external affairs minister of Jaishankar being sent to the US to secure an invitation for the prime minister, to attend Mr. Trump's inaugural. The other headlines were that the UPA also failed in creating employment, and it was basically all of that, not the substance that his speech actually contained, and that should give you an idea of what kind of sense that the speech actually made, because the mainstream media, as we all know, largely kind of glosses over anything substantive, anything positive that comes from the opposition side, and particularly from Rahul Gandhi.
Come to Rajlakshmi. Rajlakshmi, do you think that now certain portions of Rahul Gandhi's speech could be expunged? The fact that he's spoken about, because Kiran, as you just stood up when Rahul Gandhi said that Jaishankar went to secure an invite for Prime Minister Modi, and then he stood up and he said that what is the proof and how can you say that in matters of foreign policy, at least we should be one, and all of that. So do you think that there is a possibility where certain portions of Rahul Gandhi could be expunged?
Well, it can happen, Nilu. I think because he's been asked to substantiate that also.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think he would have he would be required to substantiate it. Though I feel that this is that the speaker, could have let it be also, instead of intervening and asking him to, substantiate it. I'm like, a lot is said on the floor of the house, and not everything is asked to be substantiated. In fact, more so when the ruling benches say all kinds of things, and sort of get away with it also. So I think it could have been, it could have been, bypassed. I mean, his speech. If you want me to say something on his speech itself, I think it was very structured. It was very, in fact, pleasantly structured, and for the first half, and I think a little bit more than the first half, it had argument, it had a certain understanding also, because I mean, he kept on referring to production. I think he meant manufacturing, because he meant manufacturing because there's actually no sort of manufacturing happening here. It's just assembling. And that whole example of the cell phone that he gave, it should really hit hard, uh, 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 the right quarters. The government really wants to seek message here, it's there. And the other thing is that I think he was pretty self introspective, when he said that the UP also did not generate jobs. It's a fact. It's a fact, and all employment has been only in services. And now there's talk about getting gig workers registered on the e-shram portals. I mean, that's not employment. Gig work is actually not employment really. I mean, it's a service. But in terms of generating production, right? So it's there where the country lags. And I think he drew attention to it repeatedly. He made comparisons with China, yes, but he could also have made comparisons with China in the sense of the achievements, and advancements that China has made in health, education, as well as agriculture. Investment, in these areas is as important as manufacturing. I mean, because comparisons shouldn't just stop there. As far as technological advancements go, when you talk about AI and how it's going to software revolution, but how about the social revolution? That's important too. Where the social sectors are concerned, and where China is far ahead from us, in leaps and bounds. It's achieved almost full food self sufficiency, right? And it is the biggest manufacturing hub in the world today. I mean, everything is manufactured there. In fact, much of the first world sort of outsources its manufacturing there. you know yes, he made some very interesting points. And I think the other point he also said, but he could have elaborated further, was this aspect of social tensions. Now, to say that economic, I mean, if there's economic unrest and tension, there's bound to be social tension. It's just fallout or a corollary of that. So he could have elaborated on that further, and the need to address the economic tensions in the country today, and how you would address social tensions simultaneously. So I think yes, but then I think he sort of meandered. I think a little bit when he spoke about the voter list and all these manipulations, etc. Because it was a complete drift from the initial part of his speech. Okay, because
Right.
then
When he was talking, when he spoke about the electoral malpractice, and I'll come to Srini sir. The Srini sir, today was the day when Supreme. There was a mention before the Supreme Court about the hearing which was going to go on the appointments of the chief election commissioners and the election commission. That hearing was supposed to come up tomorrow, but that now has been postponed to 12th of February. And the very fact that Rahul Gandhi mentioned that, in a few days from now, I'll have to attend a meeting where it's already known that Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah have already decided on a name, and I'll just have to go to certify. So he was trying to point out that bit, about the constitution and how the institutions have collapsed. How would you really see that bit? Because that came towards the last leg of his speech, where he spoke at length about the electoral malpractice, especially in Maharashtra, the way some 70 lakh voters were added. This is what he said between Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha elections. So he actually spoke of everything in his speech, starting from production capacity to manufacturing to putting down the government on the foreign policy bit, and then ending finally with the electoral malpractice.
Yeah, Nilu, I think what he was trying to say, if I could quickly understand from what he said about this selection of CEC and the panel, I think he suggested he's not going to attend the meeting. That's what I understood. Because he said, what's the point of
Yes.
me going there and just rubber stamping what Amit Shah and Modi is saying? I think that's a clear signal. He may not attend the meeting because there is no, the votes are not equally divided. It's always going to be one-sided. But that's what I learned from that. The other one, you spoke about the electoral malpractices. Yes, he raised that issue, and he was very careful. Largely, some of these issues could get out of hand, but then he dealt it very, in a very calculated manner. He did say that, number of electorate in the electorate list, number of voters added was almost equal to the size of Himachal Pradesh. And he also gave another specific example of a place where 7,000 people were enrolled from a single place. And further, he went on to suggest that, look, most of these voters actually ended up supporting BJP. Now, well, he has to provide, the I'm sure he's going to be asked to provide proofs for all of this. That's what the speaker would do. But I look at this speech in a much broader perspective than the way it has happened today. Look, the elections, at least 2024 parliament elections, did one thing for him. The Pappu image had gone. But then next what? That was a question. Whether he can be a bigger leader. Can he ever don the mantle of an opposition leader? He this time got the leader of opposition by virtue of the strength they got in parliament. But the next one, can he really rise to that? Because it's really the parliament speeches in which the leader of opposition shows his gravitas. Can he really show that? That didn't come through his various speeches, especially the one he spoke about Shiva and other things, because very disjointed. The themes were not formulating. I think today, for the first time, he seemed to be, kind of a thing from him. Look, there is a kind of maturity which he is now coming to be a state of maturity which he's arriving at as a leader of the opposition, because the major portion of his speech had a particular theme. And what was it? In my view, there are 2 points which he was trying to say today. One was, of course, a much simpler one, saying that, look, to a strong economy is a prerequisite for a strong nation. That's one. That's what he was trying to say. But then before that, he did another thing today. The notion of nationalism, he challenged it in many ways. That's what he has done. And he has done in a very, I would say, in a surreptitious manner, which people wouldn't have thought. Because the way he started his speech, people would have thought, no, he's going to derail. But then he continued his pace. And as he went on building on his argument, what are the things he said? Look, you can defend your borders if you're economically strong. Okay. You defend you can preserve your self-dignity. That the example which he gave of invitation to Modi, that of the nation, if you're strong economy backing you. If you want to be a nationalist, get strong from inside. Give representation to all class of people. Be more inclusive. Then security risk comes from Chinese goods. If you're going to allow them, and then he said nationalism another way also. Data is important. If you're going to allow the big, tech companies take all the data away, what are you going to keep with you? How are you going to navigate this path which is going to strike in the coming days? So also then later he came to his pet subject of constitution, and he was also trying to say that follow the written constitution which Ambedkar and others are given. Don't believe in some groups which fall outside the institutional framework. Don't trust them. When he referred to that, when was India's independence? I think, you can read it in many ways. So I think today this is what he was trying to say, that if you are saying you are a nationalist, there's another way of looking at what nationalism means. But while doing so, he could not keep away himself from certain issues, which actually really irritated the government endlessly, and they would be very strongly reacting to that, which I would call extremely sensitive for them. But he did. What was then? Modi-Trump relation. He touched that issue. Second, the Chinese on Indian borders. Again, a very delicate issue. Election manipulation, another very delicate issue. Failure to, revive industry. See, this is true that the capex we wanted to achieve 25%, which is a dream not just of this government. Even the previous government, UPA government, has been saying this, but they could never transfer and people from farm to factory. This has been one, big problem India is facing. And he admitted that, even we have failed in that. And he said, neither you have managed to do that. Uh, I think finally, when he came to the election commission, that's where he brought in the constitutional issue and saying that, the selection of the EC itself needs, a relook. So I think if you overall consider his speech, this is a very different one from what Rahul had given so far. So the final point I would like to say is that by 2047, India wants to be a developed nation. That's the big vision of this government, and nobody disagrees with this. None of us, want to be. All of us would like India to be a very developed nation, where there is a the life of every Indian improves. So what he did in a way is that he did not laugh away at that notion, what people otherwise, would have done as an opposition. You could have expected people to do. He did not do that. Rather, he said, look, if you want to be a developed nation, then what you need to do? I mean, that is the kind of a thing he was doing. And one last point, I think he was a bit unfair saying that, well, the president's speech didn't say all this. Look, president's speech is not supposed to be saying all these things. President's speech is what the state does. It's the record of what they have done, and they are given. She or he, the president is given a written speech which is passed by the cabinet, and they have to read it. They have, it's not as the president applies, our own perspective in this. So he was a bit unfair, but then he used that opportunity to say something different, which he did, because unlike other parliamentary debates where you're bound by the topic, here he had leeway. So he used that opportunity to turn it around in a different manner. So that way, I also see a certain parliamentary strategy coming from him. It's interesting.
Absolutely. And also, Puneet, I'll come to you on this, that we did see some nervous moments as far as Speaker Om Birla was concerned. The very expressions which everyone saw on his face, with Prime Minister sitting on his seat. And normally we've seen that when Rahul Gandhi is making a speech, Prime Minister normally is not there. But today, then he was present there. What do you think was that optics like of Prime Minister, then Speaker Om Birla getting nervous almost? One could read those expressions from his face so clearly. Yes, Puneet.
No, well, even last time around when the motion on the president's address was taken up, at least for the first couple of first hour or so, the prime minister was present. It's subsequently that he doesn't come to the house for the remaining days of the session. Generally, I think the first day or the first 2 days he does come in. But as far as the speaker is concerned, or if it was the same situation in the Rajya Sabha, and if it was the Prime Minister present there and Mr. Kharge, the LOP, saying what he had to say, and the Rajya Sabha chairman presiding over the proceedings, given how we've seen Parliament function over the last 10 years now, it is obvious, anybody who's watched these proceedings will tell you that given the kind of government the Prime Minister has run, given the kind of political environment that has been created, the presiding officers in both houses who are supposed to be neutral, who are not supposed to take sides, that's the last thing that they've done. They've largely been very partisan. And so it's natural to see them a bit on the edge when the Prime Minister himself is directly under attack. And we've seen, from the Treasury benches, the kind of objections that came, while Rahul was speaking, or subsequently when other speakers were attacking the Prime Minister or were critical of his government. There has been, and the speaker in the Lok Sabha or the chairman in the Rajya Sabha often take it upon themselves to say what the treasury benches or what the parliamentary affairs minister or the leader of the house would generally say to the opposition. Uh, we've seen the speaker in the Lok Sabha doing that a couple of times today. He's done that in the past, so nothing unexpected there. But I think to stay on the topic, I think Rahul did make the government uneasy on several issues, and it wasn't unexpected the way the government reacted. That is generally how you see them reacting whenever the prime minister comes under attack, not just from Rahul, but any other member of the opposition.
All right. So if you look at the speech, Rajlakshmi, and then I'll take the concluding comments from Srini, sir, that what do you think is going to be the impact of Rahul's speech on India alliance? Because so far, what we were discussing was that Rahul Gandhi has indicated enough during the Delhi elections that it seemed like he's not about what is happening with the India alliance. But today, during the speech, he mentioned India alliance very many times, saying that India alliance would have this, India alliance that, and then he came up with a plan like that. So, what do you think is going to be the impact on the various political parties? And do you think it's going to be having much of an impact?
Yeah, I think it's a good start because there's always been this complaint that the Congress has not been has not been taking the initiative to call a meeting of the of the alliance partners, and that after the Lok Sabha elections there's not been a single meeting that has been convened. Okay, so I think the speech in some senses addresses the anxieties of its partners, and that I would assume that it will be taken forward in the form of calling for a meeting to strategize. We have elections coming up this year. We have Bihar elections coming up this year, and maybe an year and a half later we have the UP elections too. So I think he was also sending out a message of sorts to the India Alliance partners that we ought to get a act together. But I still feel Neetu, that had he stuck to the framework that he started with till the end, I think he would have not given the ruling benches a handle to sort of disrupt his speech, because till then he was, it was absolutely structured. He's talking about the economy, he's talking about the failings of the UPA also. He's talking about the fact that he doesn't blame the PM. Of course it was tongue in cheek, saying that he doesn't blame the PM because Make in India is not sort of sufficient alone to make India, a manufacturing success as such. And but at the same time, he said that conceptually, Make in India was a good thing, but then it hasn't really taken off, right? And then he outlines, all the various things that need to be done. And he could have, I think, developed on those things a little bit more, rather than go on to talk about other things also. But then he was making a political point, yes, that as Mrs. Srinivasan says, that he wanted to also make a point that he might not attend that meeting, where he would have been just, a dummy, uh, you know, uh, representative, right? While the majority decision would have been taken by the ruling
Right.
party leaders. So I still feel that he could have developed on those arguments, because everything in comparison with China, it could have really gone ahead, and could have really sort of outlined the blueprint, in a sense, for making India great, the blueprint of the India Alliance for making India great,
Absolutely.
for India to be an economic power, and thereby it will be taken seriously by the first world nations. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Srinisa, I'll come for the concluding remarks to you. That how would you really summarize? You've spoken at length about what you found good about the speech, but any other point you would like to mention towards the end?
I think if Parliament debated these issues in a more bipartisan manner, it'll be a good it'll be good for everyone. And I mean, one wish we go back to those days when parliamentary debates really mattered, because last few years we have been seeing a lot of distraction. But that really depends on how much treasury benches respond to you know, speech like this. Already, you have signals that they have decided to take him squarely. The foreign ministers immediately retorted, saying that it's a bunch of lies. Uh, uh, but one would certainly say that some of the arguments which he has made certainly require more reflection, more discussion, because he also raised issue related to, unemployment, caste census, uh, the electoral process, the functioning of the election commission, uh, all those things. I think these are pretty important things. Some of them are highly politically contentious issues, but yet these are important issues. I think if there is a more discussion which opens up on these issues, it would be welcome. And he is also like I think Puneet was saying earlier that in our Reddit meeting that look, India Alliance in a different way has taken two different kind of positions. Outside all the in the Delhi elections, they seem to be facing each other, but inside Parliament, they may have to move in unison. And I think he's kind of, as a leader, he's trying to signal that he's ready for that by sharing his vision as not his alone, but of the entire opposition. That's what he tried today. I know how they respond is to be seen.
Right. So we'll have to wait and watch whether by late evening or early morning tomorrow we come to know of certain portions from his speech, if at all they've been expunged. So we'll try and look for that as well. Thank you so much, Shini sir, Raj Lakshmi, Puneet. It was wonderful to have all of you on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.